Good morning. Happy Wednesday, my favorite day. My hair is wild this morning. I'm so sorry. I like heat styled it yesterday. I did my little curling iron, for the first time in 6 months, thinking it would last until today, and all the volume and none of the curl. It's fine, and we're gonna have to fix it later. This might be a little late getting out because I am filming this like right at 8, which when I do that, it makes me sad then that I'm not live and can't talk to you, but doing it on YouTube has been helpful for me. And also, most mornings I get to just sit down with coffee and watch your videos and read the devotion and kind of get through it all myself, so it's kind of been fun. Today we have the end of Hebrews chapter 6, and then the beginning of Hebrews chapter 7, and then a psalm from Hope, which is amazing. So let's start with Hebrews 6:13 through 20. God's promise immutable. When God made the promise to Abraham, since he had no one greater by whom to swear, he swore by himself and said, I will indeed bless you and multiply you. And so, after patient waiting, he obtained the promise. Human beings swear by someone greater than themselves. For them, an oath serves as a guarantee and puts an end to all argument. So when God wanted to give the heirs of his promise an even clearer demonstration of the immutability of his promise, he intervened with an oath, so that by two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie, we who have taken refuge might be strongly encouraged to hold fast to the hope that lies before us. This we have as an anchor of the soul, sure and firm, which reaches into the interior behind the veil, where Jesus has entered on our behalf as a forerunner, becoming high priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. This Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of God Most High, met Abraham as he returned from his defeat of the kings and blessed him. And Abraham apportioned to him 1/10 of everything. His name first means righteous king, and he was also king of Salem, that is, king of peace. Without father, mother, or ancestry, without beginning of days or end of life, thus made to resemble the Son of God, he remains a priest forever. See how great he is, to whom the patriarch Abraham indeed gave 1/10 of his spoils. The descendants of Levi who received the office of priesthood have a commandment according to the law to exact tithes from the people, that is, from their brothers, although they also have come from the loins of Abraham. But he who was not of their ancestry received tithes from Abraham and blessed him who had received the promises. Unquestionably, a lesser person is blessed by a greater. In the one case, mortal men receive tithes. In the other, a man of whom it is testified that he lives on. One might even say that Levi himself, who receives tithes, was tithed through Abraham, for he was still in his father's loins when Melchizedek met him. Okay. The parts about Melchizedek are kind of hard to understand. This is one of the sections that kind of strikes me that might need a better cultural understanding of it. Because just reading this off the top of my head, I remember the story about Melchizedek in Genesis, right? We read that earlier this year. Sorry, but it seems like a stretch to me to think of him as a type of Christ. But that section that might maybe need some cultural knowledge or something like that, and then also the section about God's promise to Abraham and the fact that God made a promise even though he can't lie anyway, but he made a promise because that's what humans do. It says that that's what we do. That's what we make promises with something greater. And so God made a promise to Abraham, even though since he's God and doesn't lie and is truthful, he wouldn't have needed to swear, right? We know that he is truth. But he made a promise to Abraham, and that kind of speaks to me to this idea that God always gives us what we need, and he knows what is best for us. And he always speaks to us in a way that we will understand the best, even if it's hard to get or something at a time. I try to always take that as, well, then the struggle is good for me, right? That's why God allows us and encourages us in some ways and sometimes to question our beliefs, because through that struggle we get stronger, and he knows that sometimes that's what our minds need to stay on top of it and to stay sharp. And that has always been, especially since I was raised Baptist and then changed to Catholicism a couple of years ago, that has always been something that was kind of really impressed on me in that journey of, oh, am I called to this different denomination? Because it has always grieved me, and it does, and it still should, that the church can be seen to be fractured this way, right? Where so many Christians worship different ways and have different, worshiping different ways shouldn't be a bad thing, but it's sad that we can't be unified on some of the more minor things, even though we still are on some of the bigger things. But one of the things that was really kind of brought to my mind through this whole experience is the idea that God speaks to each one of us in the way that is best for us, and he knows us. And for a long time, the way that was best for me was through a Protestant style of worship. And suddenly it became, or not suddenly, slowly it became clear to me that the things that God has to teach me, the same God, through Catholicism, are even bigger and greater. And that was part of my movement towards him that's been continuing since my baptism. And this reminded me of that idea that God knows us so well. His promises are always true, and not only are his promises true, but he is truth, and he always wants to bring that truth to us in a way that we'll know, and in the way that is best for us, even if it doesn't seem the most perfect or the most fun to our mortal selves. So this story about Abraham, that God gave him a promise, and this story about Melchizedek, that here is this example of how Melchizedek is like Christ. Even if some of these passages in the Bible don't seem, hugely eye-opening and perfect and exciting to you, and like they have so much meaning at the time that you're reading them today, they could be exactly what you need a different time, because God is going to bring things to us as we're ready for them. And it could be the perfect thing for someone else today, for someone else who's reading this. So as you read this, kind of read with an open mind and listening to what God has to say to you today, and just listen for his voice of love and how he brings that to you, and the mercy and grace that he has for you for today and for every day.